So now we're live. All right, here we are. Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to this evening's presentation. My name is Judy Kitt. I'm the current president of the Foundation for Mind Being Research, and I know some of you might be new to us, so I just want to let you know, if you are new, if you've never heard of us before, we were founded in 1980 by scientists and artists and healers who were interested in exploring the nature of human consciousness through the lens of science, spirituality, and ancient wisdom traditions. So for the last 40 years now, we're celebrating our 40th anniversary. We've been working to expand the context within which we see ourselves as individuals and as a species, and really as part of the whole that is the universe as we know it. We believe that as more and more of us begin to see ourselves differently, as we begin to see ourselves connected, new possibilities arise, including solutions to the challenges we face as a result to this belief that we're actually separate from each other. So I encourage you to check us out at fmbr.org. Before we start, I want to remind you that whether you're on Zoom or whether you're on YouTube, you can write questions for Dr. Kroth in the chat box or in the Q&A section. And we'll save all the questions till the end, and I'll ask the questions after he's finished. If you're on the Zoom call, you can go to the chat box on the bottom of your screen and raise your hand. I think there's a little button that says raise your hand. Then if you want to actually ask your question verbally, then I can unmute you and you can ask your question. So we'll do that at the end of the presentation. So we're very pleased to welcome back Jerry Kroth, who has presented in person for us before. We're very happy to have him here via Zoom. Dr. Kroth is an associate professor emeritus at the Graduate Counseling Psychology program at Santa Clara University, just right here, one of our neighbors. Dr. Kroth has an abiding therapeutic interest in working with dreams, personal oracles, and the applications of dream theory to psychohistory and collective psychology. Dr. Kroth has written 15 books in the areas of counseling psychology, child sexual abuse, learning disorders, metapsychology, transpersonal psychology, the Kennedy assassination, crop circles, and the psychic immune system. In addition, he's written and presented over 75 papers on anxiety, child development, mass psychology, synchronicity, experimental studies on the dream process, and the psychology of propaganda and collective psychology. So this is it's wonderful to have you here, Dr. Kroth. Welcome, and in all of that, we're actually here to have you talk to us about this new crop circle that showed up in May.
Okay, should I start?
Go ahead.
Well. Now, I don't get a lot of feedback, so if something goes wrong, you don't hear the audio, you let me know.
Okay.
Otherwise, I'll just be talking and no one will hear me. So I wrote a book a year ago, called Messages from the Gods on crop circles. And I had decided that some crop circles may not be all made by hoaxers and so-called croppies, but may be extraterrestrial messages. So I finished that book. It's up for sale on Amazon. It's called Messages from the Gods. And I thought it was done. And I was tired because crop circles are very difficult to figure out and decode. They're highly abstract. They're exhausting. And then I saw this one. Now I'm going to start my slides. So I saw this crop circle. Are our faces blocking that view?
No.
Okay, good.
No, you're side by side.
All right, great. So I thought, wow, what is that? It looked like some kind of a blob, and yet it was intriguing. I thought this could be a facsimile of COVID-19. So as I looked at it more carefully, it's like 200 meters long. It's extremely articulate. And what impressed me was I didn't see any footprints leading to the crop circle or leading away from the crop circle. So this is made in a farmer's field in Wiltshire. The farmer did not like that happened. He didn't allow anyone on the property. And my first reaction was, maybe it's a hoax. It's probably a hoax. Yes, it's got to be a hoax. Some group of people made this. But as I started to look at it more carefully, I looked at this is an extremely articulate crop circle. How do you do that at midnight under the cover of darkness with no barking dogs that carefully, that beautifully? I mean, this looked like an English landscaped garden carved at midnight or at 1 o'clock in the morning with no one noticing. That's incredible. And I thought, and look at the detail. How do you do that? So I thought, maybe you ought to take this more seriously. Maybe this really is a message from ET. So in every kind of crop circle that I ever investigated, there's a lot of homework to do. I didn't know anything about microbiology. I'm a psychologist with a PhD. So you have to do your homework. So I started learning about COVID-19. And COVID-19 has spike proteins. Those are those purple things sticking out. Well, if you look at this crop circle, you see 9 spike proteins, pretty nicely identified. Also, there are things in COVID-19 called dimers. Dimers are these little orange snubs or stubs, if you want to call it that. And if you look at the crop circle, you can see 3 dimers. These are the 3 little stubs. So it's starting to make sense to me, and it's starting to reasonably represent the virus. So some more homework, and I thought I would pass on that homework to you.
Distinctive protein spikes. It's these spikes that give coronavirus family its name. In Latin, corona means crown. See? And the name COVID-19 simply means coronavirus disease of 2019. The corona protrudes from the glycoprotein membrane, an envelope of lipid molecules that coat the virus cell's body. This fatty layer of skin is very delicate, and it falls apart when it meets soap. And that's why, for now, soap is our best weapon against the virus, and why you should take your time washing your hands. After 20 seconds, soap penetrates the grease and grime on our hands enough to rip the virus membrane apart, killing it. Under that oily skin is where the real trouble lies. Inside each cell is a small sample of RNA, ribonucleic acid. It carries the virus's genetic code and allows it to multiply, leading to infection. But how does the viral RNA get into our bodies? It comes back to those protein spikes. After the virus has entered the human body, it uses those spikes to attach itself to a healthy cell in the respiratory system. Once that's done, the viral RNA is released and the takeover begins. The cell reads the viral RNA and makes proteins that keep our body's immune systems suppressed. That allows the virus to reproduce and multiply, killing healthy cells and potentially causing lifelong damage or death. So how do we beat this disease? Again, it's all to do with those protein spikes. They might be its strength, but scientists think they might also be its weakness. They now know its genetic code and can recreate it. A trial that began in Seattle is injecting.
So I'm going to cut that short. Now, I also wanted to know, what are dimers? Because the crop circle is showing us 3 dimers, but I have no idea what a dimer is.
So first, why is this happening? COVID-19 causes a ton of inflammation in the body. You're seeing the inflammatory markers. The D-dimers are going up, CRPs are going up.
So dimers have something to do with thrombosis, inflammation, blood clots. Okay, well, so we did our homework. Now let's get back to the crop circle, because I had one last question, and that is, why did these people make the crop circle incorrectly? Why is there's no blob at the bottom of the scientific diagram of COVID-19? There's no blob at the bottom, but there is on this crop circle. So I was trying to figure out where do I go with that? So if you look at the blob a little more carefully, you recognize that it is a magnification of a spike protein. You're actually being instructed to look inside a spiked protein, and you see 8 little things in there. So here's a little video telling us about the spike protein and the magnification process.
You might recognize it by now. This is SARS-CoV-2, the virus that causes the novel coronavirus COVID-19. A single cell is just 120 nanometers in diameter. Here it is at 12 million times magnification, a microscopic virus that's turned the world upside down.
So when you look at the virus at the body of the crop circle, it's 12 million times in magnification, but the spike protein inside is 1 to 2 nanometers. So you're looking at something that is 100 times magnified over that. So whoever made this crop circle is showing us the insides of one spike protein at a magnification 100 times that of 12 million times. Kind of interesting, very cool. And we're looking at 8 little things. We have no idea what we're looking at, but we're looking at something that has been magnified. So I wanted to find out, what are those 8 little thingamajigs? But that was my first moment where I said, oh my God, this is real. I'm watching something here. I don't think this is made by human 26-year-old vandals. I think that this is some kind of very important message. So my next question is, what's inside that spike protein? It's spike protein with 8 things. It's SP8, 8SP. I'm looking through all the professional literature for something like spike protein with 8 things in it. And I'm not a microbiologist, so I discovered. Now, I'm going to read this. I wrote this white paper, which is, it's really not a book. It's a white paper that's about 50 pages long that accompanies this lecture. Let me quote you. We propose that SP8 epitope should help in the characterization of mechanisms of virus control and immunopathology. That's from an article, a scientific article I could barely understand, but I thought, wait a minute, that means SP8 is good. It has something to do with immunity. So I'm going to quote this. This is from my book. In other words, SP8 has something to do with antibodies and immunity. Stay with me now, because this gets exciting and complex all at the same time. SP8 induces things called CTLs, and a CTL is a type of cell that can kill cells that are infected with a virus. CTLs will bind to the infected cell and often will be able to destroy it before it can release a fresh crop of viruses. My God, SP8 is good. Hooray, I'm a genius, I said to myself. Look at this. The crop circle is telling us that SP8 is there to cure humankind of the virus. And I was patting myself on the back, thinking, what a great discovery. So this crop circle is showing us a magnified version of SP8, which will teach us how to protect ourselves from the virus. That's what I thought. And then it came out that I was mistaken. And it was like, no, sir, not so fast, Buster. You don't know what you're talking about. You're a psychologist. You're reading articles in microbiology. And guess what? The article that you were reading was published in 2009. You've got the wrong coronavirus. This SP8 has had to do with SARS, not COVID-19. So I was disappointed. I said, I give up. I quit. This stuff is too complex for me, and I'm going to quit. And then a little voice said, okay, don't give up. You made some progress. Why don't you start asking some questions? You're a professor. Ask questions of other professors. So that's what I did. So I write to about 4 or 5 really storied professors in biology, microbiology, virology, epidemiology. Here's what I said in my email. I'm a retired psychology professor, and I was working on a piece on COVID-19, only to find out I'm way over my head. Can you help me with the following question? I know that SP8 was found in, by the way, I never tell them I'm talking about crop circles. They'll put me in their spam folder immediately. I just ask scientific questions. So here's the question. I know that SP8 was found in another coronavirus, SARS, and that it had a positive immunological function. Has SP8 been found in COVID-19, or has anyone looked for it? Well, a guy writes back, a professor, and said, hi, Jerry, it's not every day I receive an inquiry from a retired psychology professor working on COVID about a viral immunology question. I'm also not sure why you chose me out of the universe of folks who could have asked about this. But here's what I know. Get ready. The COVID sequence available here indicates that the SP8 epitope from SARS to which you referred, blah, 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 look at the italics, is indeed present in full in the COVID spike protein. So SP8 really does exist in COVID-19. A second professor writes back and says, yes, it's been discovered in COVID-19, but no one knows if it has the same function it has in SARS. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we have a crop circle telling us about SP8, and I'm not mentioning crop circles to any of these scientists, but are you seeing the connection developing between these two realities? So when I asked if SP8 in COVID-19 could be a positive sign and that it might have an immune function, the professor said, it certainly seems like an idea worth following. So let's take this very slowly. This was very complex. I mentioned it's very complex for you, so I'm going to take it step by step. We are back to our initial discovery about this crop circle. The crop circle seems to be showing us a magnified version of SP8, which may teach us how to protect ourselves from the virus. Okay, so on May 29th, 2020, when this crop circle appears, scientists did not know for sure if it had this wonderful immunological property in COVID-19 like it had in SARS. They didn't know that when this crop circle appears. Was the crop circle saying it did and that we should check it out more than we have checked it out? One question I had, and I said, you know, I'm still way over my head. I don't know really what I'm talking about. So I wrote to a professor and I thought to myself, is this going to be an embarrassing question or not? And I said, what's the 8 stand for in SP8? Because the crop circle has got 8 little things there, right? So I said, what's the 8 stand for? And one professor said, probably amino acids. And the second professor said, I think SP8 probably refers to a peptide. Well, it turns out that amino acids make peptides. So both of these professors are basically saying the same thing. You're looking at a spike protein that is showing you 8 amino acids or 1 peptide. Okay. All right. So in short, we're being asked to look inside a magnified piece of a spike protein. And what we are looking for has an immunological function and might have the same immunological function in COVID-19 that it had in SARS. And the 8 little thingamajigs are magnified amino acids or peptides. Now, you may think this is repetitious, but I needed to go slowly and go over this again and again because this was all very, very new information for me. And I imagine it is a struggle for you too, unless you're a microbiologist listening to this talk. So there are our 8 little magnified amino acids, or perhaps 1 peptide. And that was my second moment where I said, oh my God, this is really, really important. So peptides actually are being studied to target the virus. Solnatide, aviptadil, losartan, dipeptidase. Let me pronounce that again. Dipeptidase. These are 3 peptides that scientists today are looking at as possible immunological or therapeutics for COVID-19. So I thought, okay, is there anything more to do? Are we done? Can I go home now? Can I relax? And then I said, wait a minute, you forgot to talk about the center of the circle. If you're going to explain a crop circle, try to do it as completely as you can. And you've just talked about the blob at the bottom. What about the middle? What's in the center of the virus? What are you looking at? Well, originally I thought those were holes. And I wrote to scientists and I said, this is actually funny. I said, does the virus have holes in it? But that was a visual mistake. Those are not holes, those are tufts. It's okay, it's a figure ground thing. Those are things that come out at you. They're not holes at all. So you're looking at the inside of the virus here. And
Video.
here's a
First of all, what do we know about the virus? Coronaviruses received their name from their appearance in electron micrographs, where the pronounced spike-like protrusions create the effect of a corona, Latin for crown. The genetic material inside the coronavirus is RNA, and the entire genome is almost 30,000 bases long. For the virus to replicate, however, it needs to insert its RNA into cells and hijack the cellular machinery to produce new viruses.
So the inside, the properties of the virus are basically RNA. Now, RNA is made of 3 letters representing a sugar, a phosphate, and a base. So look at these 3 little circles. They represent the 3 letters of RNA. I thought that was an amazing correlation or correspondence. So what's inside the virus is RNA. What's inside our crop circle are 3 little circles representing the building blocks of something that RNA makes, that RNA manufactures. Well, RNA encodes non-structural proteins, NSPs, okay? And those larger circles, I thought, maybe those are NSPs. 1, 2, 3. Okay, but I don't know what an NSP is. I don't know how they are, so I had to learn about that. NSP3, I thought, oh my, there it is, NSP3. We've got 3 things, NSP3. What is it? And it's really a killer. All NSPs are killers. NSP3 refers to a large multi-domain protein which makes this virus highly contagious. It is a replication transcription scaffolding protein. It proliferates the virus. It's not good. A University of Michigan study said they thought NSP3 was a good candidate for a vaccine. Well, isn't that interesting? But then I asked, if ET is sending us a message about NSP3, why did he do it 3 times? That's a little redundant, I thought. Well, there are more NSPs. There are actually about 19 non-structural proteins. And NSP15, for example, is a newly mapped protein which was thought to directly participate in viral replication. But more recently, it was proposed to help the virus replicate by interfering with the immune system. So NSP15 shuts down our immune system. Thank you very much. We don't like that. Now, some of these discoveries seem to be at the same time or even after the crop circle appeared. For example, here's an article I was reading and I noticed the date is June 10th. Well, that is 12 days after the crop circle. So this crop circle seems to be kind of like on the cutting edge of science. So now let me go and talk to you about NSP5. I thought, well, let's start talking about NSPs and learning about it. And then I run into these articles, and to me, they look like they're in Chinese. Look at the title of this article: Ligand-Induced Dimerization of Middle East Respiratory Syndrome, blah, 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 blah. And I thought, I'll never understand this stuff. But I'm starting to learn to read between the lines. And I notice NSP5 has something to do with being an antiviral. I notice that it is called NSP5. And I notice that this is published June 3rd, 5 days after the crop circle. So I'm thinking this crop circle really is on the cutting edge of science. So I thought, maybe you should start asking some more questions about NSPs because you're really over your head here. So here's another question to a virologist and I think a biologist, a professor of biology. I've been reading about NSP5 and it looked like a good candidate for a therapeutic in SARS and MERS, I said. Has anything similar been said about NSP5 in COVID-19? The answer comes back, I haven't heard anything like that. Okay. This crop circle seems to be ahead of science. I mean, it's talking about things that scientists haven't yet got to. So I noticed that these three large circles form a triangle. And a lot of these professors are talking about NSP locations. So I'm wondering, is this crop circle telling us things about the location of an NSP or multi? So anyway, let's face it, I'm over my head. You're swimming, I'm sure, in confusion. So let's summarize what we have learned, okay? We've learned that there are 3 letters in RNA and there are 3 little circles in the body of this virus. And that's a very interesting correspondence. This crop circle is saying something about the RNA mechanisms of the virus. Secondly, the larger circles seem to represent non-structural proteins, maybe 3, 5, 15, maybe others, we don't know. But they're all very deadly, but they're also possible vaccine candidates. Okay? Now, in the best of all worlds, a guy with a PhD in psychology would not be doing this. We would have a microbiologist, a virologist, an epidemiologist, a physician, a biophysicist studying this crop circle and coming up with important hints. Professor Richard Taylor, a physicist, a brave physicist, says, there is a huge amount of rigorous fundamental science that could be gotten out of this research, but many scientists are put off getting into crop circles because they are considered a crazy thing. So if you mention crop circles, you immediately go into the spam folder. There is too much prejudice against this for anyone to take it seriously. So what have we learned on our own? Because we are operating on our own. We do not have scientific backs. We have a few scientists who are willing to get involved in this, but what we need is a coterie of scientists really looking at these things. The crop circle is showing us a virus at 12 million times magnification, okay? It is identifying 9 spike proteins that we're supposed to be looking at. It is showing us 3 dimers that are involved with blood and thrombosis issues. Its most important feature, in my opinion, is that it shows us a spike protein magnified 100 times where we can see an array of 8 amino acids. Well, SP8 was found in SARS to have an immunological property. It was identified in COVID-19, but when this crop circle appeared, scientists were still not sure it had any immunological properties. So the crop circle seems to be saying, guys, it has immunological properties. Start studying it. So that's what we've learned. And we also learned that inside the virus are 3 letters of RNA portrayed in the crop circle and 3 non-structural proteins. I don't know which ones they're mentioning, but I've talked about 3, 5, and 15. Now I hired a PhD candidate at Stanford who worked in COVID and said, I want you to review my paper I don't want to be making any mistakes, and I'm operating outside of my own discipline here. So please review what I've written and tell me if I've made any mistakes. And he made a couple little corrections, and that's it. He did say that there are a lot of NSPs that have not gotten any science yet behind them. So we haven't really found out what all these 19 NSPs do. So in my book, Messages from the Gods, I tried to translate some crop circles, which I felt were extraterrestrial in origin, and I tried to translate them into English as if these symbolic things in fields of barley are saying something. So here's the English translation of this crop circle. And this is coming from ET. Good luck. I mean, I actually believe that. So you can think I'm crazy if you wish. Here's what the message is saying. You are currently suffering from a planetary-wide viral pandemic. In order to make progress against this illness, concentrate your efforts on non-structural proteins and their associated RNA mechanics, which replicate the virus. You should also study the distribution of amino acids and peptides in spike proteins to help successfully immunize your species from the widespread mortality which will otherwise follow. Thank you, E.T. Now, here is a picture of the virus as it is emerging. It's in brown at the very bottom of your screen. On March 26th, it's coming up. It's the 8th cause of death, the 7th, the 6th cause of death on Earth, the 3rd cause of death. By April 25th is the 2nd leading cause of death in the world. By May 5th, by May 10th, it's still now it has become on May 19th the leading cause of death in the world. And now is when the crop circle appears. The crop circle appears almost exactly at the moment that COVID-19 becomes the leading cause of death on planet Earth. Interesting coincidence. So when I made this video, it was at this now this has changed, but when I made the video, as of this writing, 10 million cases of COVID existed, and there were 500,000 deaths. Now, right now, it's 25 million cases and 875,000 deaths. But let's go back to when I did this video, which was 3 weeks after the crop circle. The doubling time then was 5 weeks, okay? So there would be I said there would be 20 million cases by early August. Well, we have 25 million cases by the end of August. But if we are not able to defeat the doubling time of this virus by a vaccine, by intervention, by therapeutics, by masking, by sheltering in place, humanity will have 1 billion cases by February and 50 million deaths by February. 6 months from now, that's as many people as died from the Spanish flu. That's also as many people who died in World War II. We will have the consequences of World War II within 6 months, unless we are successful in defeating this scourge. Now I didn't just make that up. There are reports, 1 billion could become infected worldwide. The International Rescue Committee says 1 billion cases could be expected. Fragile countries could see 1 billion coronavirus cases. So we're sitting on a bomb that is ready to explode. So I think my conclusion is we need to overcome our biases about crop circles. We need to allow scientists to come out of the closet and say, yeah, we need to start looking at these things more seriously, try to decode it, and then to look at whether or not spike proteins, amino acids, peptides, NSPs have something whether this is suggesting something that is scientifically viable. Now, in concluding this talk, I would like to talk to skeptics. I have a comment I would like to, as an addendum to this. I have a lot of friends who are very intelligent who say, Jerry, you're barking up the wrong tree. All crop circles are made by humans. And when you suggest this is a message from ET, I'm sorry, you're too far out for us. So I would like to address a postscript to these skeptics, okay? Here's a question for you if you're a doubter. I'm addressing a few people that I know who are very smart people and who think, no, you're completely wrong here. My first question is this crop circle about COVID-19, about spike proteins, about dimers, RNA, non-structural proteins, amino acid, and peptides? Yes or no? I think they would say, I agree, it's about all that, but it's made by humans, Jerry. Good. My second question, are you aware that the knowledge of SP8 was incomplete at the time of this crop circle's appearance? They didn't know if it had an immunological function. And they would probably say, well, that's interesting, but the people who made this probably knew that. Okay. My third question to my skeptics, are you aware that the knowledge of NSP3 and 5 and 15 were also very, very new at the time of this crop circle's appearance? One professor said he hadn't heard anything about NSP5 being a target for a vaccine or a therapeutic. And they would probably say, well, that's because the people who made the crop circle were really pretty smart. My fourth question to my skeptics is this. Are you aware that some of this research hadn't even been fully published at the time this crop circle appeared on May 29? One study was published 3 days after the crop circle was first noted. And I don't know what they would say to that. But let's take a look at our skeptics' theory that this crop circle has to be made by human beings. First of all, they have to admit the people who made this crop circle are very, very smart. That's number one. And number two, the people who made this, their team of croppies, they knew more about COVID-19 on May 29th than many state-of-the-art scientists knew. Our crop circle vandals. And three, these people who made the crop circle seem to care about humanity because they're showing us SP8. SP8 has something to do with immunological functions. It has something to do with protecting the human race against a pandemic. They seem to care about humanity. Okay, so my next observation here is that these people who made the crop circle obviously had to rehearse it. You can't do that beautifully in one night. You've got to go to somebody else's field of barley and practice to get it just right. So they had to rehearse their work, and they had to do it in the middle of the night. Okay, but here's the problem. They covered their tracks. Why did they cover their tracks? That's the biggest question to my friends, the skeptics. If these very, very, very intelligent people who care about humanity made a crop circle and hid their footprints, why did they do that? Why did they try to hide the fact that they made that crop circle? And also, why did they go to a farmer's field and cost the farmer $3,000 in lost crop by vandalizing his field? It doesn't make sense. And why did they enjoy pulling off a hoax and having a good laugh and deceiving people by hiding their footprints? These geniuses who care about humanity. In other words, the theory of my skeptical friends makes no sense. It's got too much cognitive dissonance. It doesn't compute. It's maddening. In other words, they care enough about humanity to know the science that well. They rehearse their crop circles so well they captured the amino acids and 4 pairs of perfectly little tufts inside a spike protein that they magnified 100 times. And yet, they're deceptive, they're criminal trespassers, they're hoaxers, they're pranksters, and they're having a good laugh right in the middle of a pandemic. I'm sorry, That makes no sense to me. And that's their theory. So, pardon my belligerence, or pardon my contrary opinion, but that is not how this crop circle was made, and that is not who made this crop circle. So thank you very much. That's all I have to say. Take care, and thanks for coming.
Excellent. Thank you so much. We have a number of questions. I have a couple of questions. How did you choose the virologists that you contacted?
I just looked up people on Google who are professors of virology who worked in COVID-19. So if you were a scientist who worked in COVID-19 and you're a professor in some university, I didn't know these people, I just wrote them.
Interesting. Okay, and the ligand dimerization paper that came out about the antivirals on June 3rd.
Yeah.
I think I saw that date was June 3rd, 2015. I think it was 5 years ago, not after the virus, was it?
Yeah, you're right. It was early. It was before. It was about another virus entirely.
About SARS, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So Steve wants to know, have any doctors, so you put this information out in July, was it?
I suppose, yeah. I think it was June.
June, okay, because I know things are, I know that everybody's really rushing to research this. Do you know of any doctors or researchers that have followed up on, peptides and anything like this?
Well, I wrote to a few scientists, and a few people who've watched the video said, we've got to send this to scientists. One scientist said, I'm not working in that area. Another scientist did not seem interested. I have not had any kind of scientist say, oh my God, I'm crazy about this work. But I did see that there's GlaxoSmithKline, I think, is working on a therapeutic from a spike protein and a peptide. That's as close as I know. But I don't see, I think what's going to happen is we're going to find ourselves a vaccine or a therapeutic and say, aha, you see, it was always in that crop circle. I don't think it's going to work the other way, where the crop circle is going to lead a scientist to a discovery, because there's just too much bias against it.
Okay, and then Steve says that the cause of death statistics you showed left out cancer, heart disease, and stroke, which have far more deaths than COVID-19. Is that true? I didn't catch that.
I don't know. I think it might be, yes. This was a video that I got on causes of death, and I think heart disease is in there, but I have to check. He may be right. It may be that it was not, it did not cover that. I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
I didn't make that video. I borrowed it.
So question from Thomas, have you studied the Chilbolton crop circle?
Yes.
It also has a lot of science which matches the Arecibo signal of Carl Sagan's, and yet difference to another CD civilization, perhaps.
Yes, that's discussed in my book. It's discussed in a lot of other books too. It's a very mysterious event, and I think there's a very strongly likelihood that it was not hoaxed.
What sources did you use for your COVID-19 increase graph since its inception as a leading cause of death? Could there be another significance to the date of the crop circle instead of a peak or spike in cases?
Good question. I don't know. I asked why would the crop circle, when I'm sure that a crop circle is extraterrestrial, I think every single detail in the crop circle is meaningful. So if I can't explain it, it's my own stupidity. So I thought May 29th, that has to be important. And I couldn't figure out a reason why it would happen on May 29th. And then when I saw that flowing graph of the causes of death and realized that COVID-19 became the leading cause of death on like May 26th, that's when May 29th started to make sense to me. That makes sense that was the time at which the virus became the leading cause of death on Earth. At least that's how I interpreted it.
Do you know of any other crop circles that might relate to this one and that may give more details on how to create a cure or vaccine?
Nope, not a one.
In your opinion, why are these messages not written in English or another language instead of symbols?
I've always asked myself that question. And the other question is, why are they all, why are at least half of them appearing in England? So my answer is this. I could not really answer that honestly to myself, but I gave this talk to actually, I gave this talk to your group 2 years ago when my book Messages from the Gods came out. I don't know if you know this, Judy. This was not about this group. It was about another, the book I wrote on crop circles. And after the talk, there were about 70 people there. A guy comes up to me. I'd say he was about 40 years old. He had short black hair on kind of military style haircut. And he said, Jerry, I just want you to know that you're on the right track. And I said, what do you mean? He said, because the government does take crop circles seriously. I said, really? How do you know? He said, I've already said too much. I said, what do you mean you've said too much? Come on, what are you talking about? I've got to go, I'm sorry. But I want you to know that the government does take this stuff seriously. Hey, I said, listen, stop, don't go anywhere. I want to talk to you. He said, I can't talk any further. And he walked out of your meeting.
Wow.
So that comes back to answering your question. I have a feeling that, and this is a theory, I can't prove this, but in the 1950s, Roswell happens in 1947, the government commissions a study by the RAND Corporation saying, what would happen if we told the American people that they were visited by extraterrestrials? And the RAND Corporation report said, I forgot the name of the report, it's in my book. It said, we think the population would panic. We feel that it would have a very negative effect on religion. We feel it would be destabilizing to the human race. And we think that kind of knowledge would be hurtful to humanity. So that's when the government decided to go secret on UFOs and always say they were weather balloons. And I think, therefore, here's my theory, that ET understands this and makes crop circles in an abstract language and understands that elites will figure them out and other people think, oh, they're just hoaxes, and they won't panic and they won't see, aliens are, when someone spots a UFO, UFOs usually run away. They don't want to be discovered. They don't want to be seen. So I have a feeling that they're abstract for that reason, that elites will understand them, but the masses will not.
Okay. So 2 questions here about authenticity. Please mention the bending of the crops, which show the authentic nature of the crop circle as opposed to breakage, which is man-made. And then a related question, which was, were any crop circle experts allowed to investigate the crop circle? Sorry, just lost the question. And to see if it had any of the characteristics that are what, considered to be real, not man-made.
Okay, well, if you go to a site called the Crop Circle Connector, one word, cropcircleconnector.com, that's the best site, and you can read a number of different opinions on this crop circle. When I got my hands on it, they had not even revealed where it was located because they felt the farmer's field would be inundated by tourists. So they hid the location. I know the location now, and I think it's available now. But in terms of the quality, there were no field reports about usually there are field reports about footprints or infrared signatures or broken fences or tire tracks, things like that. There were no field reports on this at the time I did it. You can go to that site and see what happens now since that time.
I was wondering, they have in British fields, they have those tram tracks And I can see, tram tracks in the formation cover, spans those tracks. Could people have walked in along those tracks and not left footprints?
Yes, they could have. But then we have hoaxers who are trying to deceive us, right?
Right.
And they're at the same time extremely intelligent people who know about NSPs and peptides and amino acids. So my comment still stands. What kind of person is that you're imagining?
Right. And so there's a comment here from Anne, who says she has been in and studied 22 crop circles in Wiltshire from 2009 to 2011. None of them appeared to be a hoax. They are made by ascended masters. I discovered that they leave their signature. That is why they're similar formations over the years, or certain messengers have a unique style. She says Isis created some of the most elaborate ones, and I assume that's the goddess and not the organization. Have you discovered and researched other formations related to human health conditions?
Let me see. Yes. There is a crop circle that's in my book, Messages from the Gods, that is a perfect molecular diagram of vitamin A. And you say, and it's like 200 meters long. It's the size of 2 football fields. And this is down to the accuracy of an electron. If you look at a Lewis diagram of vitamin A, there it is. And it's a perfect, you can superimpose one on the other. And you thought, well, and then my role in understanding these things is like, why in God's name would E.T. make a crop circle about a vitamin? Is he selling vitamin supplements? Does he have a side job? And then I started saying, well, you got to learn about vitamin A. You think it's not just about your skin or your hair. And then I realized as I started researching vitamin A, 14% of the human race is vitamin A deficient. It affects intelligence, it affects pregnancy, it affects the quality of the progeny. Children who are born with a mother who is vitamin A deficient come out colorblind, half of them die. So it was a message basically saying you need to take care of your species, because 14% of your species is deficient in a very easy vitamin that could be distributed to everyone, and you would prevent 500,000 deaths a year. That's the one health one I found.
Huh. You talked about this a little bit. You mentioned that half of all crop circles are in England. Speculation as to why?
I've tried to figure that out because, well, first of all, a lot of hoaxers are in England. So that's one confounding variable. But if a crop circle appears in Poland, it's photographed from the ground. They don't have drones flying over, and you can't really understand the crop circle by looking at it from the ground, the same way you can't understand the Nazca lines in Peru unless you fly over them. So the English are very meticulous in documenting their crop circles. Lucy, forgot her last name. Anybody know it? Lucy Pringle, probably the world's best photographer of crop circles, has an entire archive. I don't know. My speculation is they're in England because the English pay attention to them and they're trying to communicate a message. There are crop circles in France and Kansas and Canada and New Zealand. Yes, there are.
Okay, so I have a question for you. You talk about, this is a message from E.T., capital E, capital T. What leads you to the conclusion? Well, what am I asking you? Specific civilizations, or just, I don't know. Can you give more detail about that?
I don't know what you're driving at. Is this your question?
This is my question. So from what I hear, there are a number of ET civilizations that are visiting the planet. Is it, do you have a sense of which ones they are?
No, I never go into that direction.
Okay, so you're just saying it's an off-planet intelligence.
Yes.
That cares about humanity.
Absolutely.
And is trying to give.
Yeah, all of the interpretations that I've made from my crop circle research seems to show that ET, whoever that is, cares about the viability of the human race. And there are a couple warnings about global warming, about nuclear power, about helping us medically. And there are a lot of educational crop circles that are like teaching humanity about astrophysics and neutron stars
and sacred geometry and things. Yes.
Yeah. But I'm sorry, I don't go into saying an angel or this species. I don't think we know enough to talk like that. Some people do.
Anne says that they are from a non-ordinary realm, love us here on Earth and want to help. Question, the crop circle appears to display 3 dimers. I believe you said that the structure of COVID-19 virus is comprised of 8 dimers. Is there a possible reason for this discrepancy, and could this be an area of further investigation? Is that accurate?
I do not know the answer to that. And I know that there are many more spike proteins than 9. I mean, this is showing us 9.
Right, it's a sphere, right?
Yeah, but there are many more than that. So maybe you're only looking at the front and there are 3 other dimensions. And so if you think of this as 3-dimensional and there's a backside to this, then you've got 3 more. And if you see it as a sphere that is now a 3-dimensional sphere that is now condensed into a 2-dimensional crop circle, maybe you can come up with 9 that way. I didn't know that there were 9 dimers in COVID-19. That's over my head.
Thomas wants to know if you could please consider releasing your books in paperback as well. Kindle makes reading difficult and hard to quote, reproduce in PowerPoint slides for communicating your message.
Yeah, but when you try to do that photograph on the cover cost me $75. And if you put down and I repeat, I mean, there are probably 200 photographs in my book. So if you buy the rights and put down 4-color processed photographs in a printed version, it's going to cost you $150 to see that book. Kindle makes it possible for you to see these images. And with crop circles, you need to see the images. So I think it's extremely costly to try to put out a print book. I would recommend getting a better Kindle.
Has your research into the COVID crop circle shown any indication of any man-made element that would show human scientists may have manipulated the virus?
Oh, no. You mean from this? No, I can't.
From this one, yeah.
No, I can't see any of that. Who knows? But if that's a conspiracy theory, well, maybe I'll leave that conspiracy theory to the person who asked the question. I can't go there, but maybe you could go there if you really tried. Maybe that spike protein with 8 things at the bottom is alerting you to your maybe it's not a spike. No, I'm not going to go there. I'm sorry. You almost got me, but I quit.
Is there anything else it could be?
Yeah, somebody said it's a flower, it's the tree of life. Good luck. I don't think so. There's too many internal. To me, a crop circle interpretation is like a Rorschach blot. I was trained as a psychologist, and you look at internal consistency. This connects with that. This connects with that. If you get these connections and you get multiple connections, that's when it makes sense. So I think there are lots of multiple, almost everything that you see in this crop circle we have explained, or at least we have identified. That's a lot of connections. 3 dimers, 3 letters of RNA, 3 NSPs, 9 spike proteins, 8 amino acids. It's all there.
Okay, I think.
Maybe I'm biased.
Are there any other questions? Had a lot of good ones.
Yes, there were.
Okay.
I'd like to communicate. I don't see any of the audience, but I would like to thank you for showing up, asking all these intelligent questions, and participating, because it makes me feel good. I would like to say this: if you know a scientist, I hope you can give them the link to this YouTube video, because I would love to have this video put in the hands of important scientists who might, take a look at it. I'd like to spread the word in that community.
So here's another question. Other than a vaccine, have you considered thinking more deeply about what remedy ETs could be pointing to? I find it hard to believe they would support vaccines the way we currently create them.
Why not? Why do you feel that way?
I don't know.
I see.
Yeah, I think people don't like vaccine development.
I see. Well, I think ET wants us to be protected against this virus and is giving us clues. I don't know if NSPs will lead to a vaccine. I don't know if the spike protein SP8 will lead to a vaccine or therapeutic. Some of these could lead to therapeutics. I believe what I call the GlaxoSmithKline work seems to be dealing with a therapeutic, not a vaccine. It is a medicine that will cure, like remdesivir, that will cure the virus without vaccination.
Yeah, Mary's, Mary Cummings, she's posting a lot of stuff. If you want to kind of jump over everyone who's listening on the YouTube channel, she's posting a lot of resources about people who are doing research on peptides being really helpful and with no side effects, she said.
Yeah, that's right. She called me about that. And
yeah,
it's possible. Yeah, she said, in fact, I did find a piece of research about a peptide that could have no side effects.
Jessica wants to know if your slides are available.
No, the YouTube video, you can download it off of YouTube.
Yes, it is available. It's on your YouTube page, is that correct?
It's on YouTube, under Jerry Kroth. Look it up under that title.
Yeah. And also, while we have everyone here, let's tell them what your website is.
Collective Psych, there's right at the bottom of the page, collectivepsych.com.
Okay.
You can email me through that website.
Right. So if you have further questions for Dr. Kroth, I assume it's okay for people to contact you.
Yep.
And ask you questions. Okay. I think I have gone through all of the questions. And Jerry, I do this as webinars so that we don't have the, looks like 75 thumbnails. That's why you can't see people. But we've got 75 people here listening.
Well, that's nice. That's a big audience.
Yeah.
Well, how nice.
So, okay, I think we've gone through all of the questions. If you have a question you want to ask directly to Dr. Kroth, you can go on his website and email him. So I want to thank you, Dr. Kroth. I want to thank everyone who's come and spent an hour of your Friday evening on a holiday weekend with us. And wishing everybody health and safety and a good weekend.
Thank you, Judy, for moderating it so effectively too.
Thank you. All right, thanks all.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.